Bay Area brawler, Skyler Greenberg, and your Colonial Champion, Sean McCourt. Welcome to the Court-Martail Podcast!
And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to what will be one of the fastest, most rushed podcasts in the history of the Court-Martail Podcast, because we are starting and the clock is ticking. I am your Colonial Champion, Sean McCarty, not wasting any time, introducing me and the man of the hour, the man with the power, who's too sweet to be sour, the Bay Area brawler himself. We've got New Japan to talk about. We've got Elimination Chamber to talk about. We've got announcements to talk about, and this man's at the heart of it all. How are you doing, Skyler? How you doing? Let's get right into the action.
Let's get right to the action, hot and heavy. Welcome to the Court-Martail Podcast, CM Punk's approved wrestling podcast.
That's right, Whittle. That's how it got its name, but we've got 2 pay-per-views to review and less than 2 hours to do it, folks. So apologies in advance if you're expecting the 3-hour slog that usually comes with the pay-per-view reviews, because we just simply do not have the time. And the last thing we want to do is what happened to the original Sasha Banks and Mercedes Moné episode and have it be cut short because of shenanigans, and then it get quote-unquote lost in the files, so that I had to just straight up delete it and say, fuck all of us. But we don't have to do that this time, because we're going to give you the quality you deserve. But it starts with you, Sky, because on the 18th of February, you went to New Japan Pro Wrestling's Battle in the Valley. And why don't you give us the breakdown of your thoughts, impressions, kind of the way that we did when Abizzle did his set of commentary when we showed up.
Okay, so let's go through it quickly. We attended the event at the San Jose Civic Arena, which basically kind of looks like the Hammerstein Ballroom. It looked very nice, didn't it, in the pictures I saw?
It honestly looks a lot larger in the cameras that they shot it, because I did go back and watch a few of the matches. It looks a lot bigger on camera than it actually, I think, the venue really is. But it's nice. It's got a good ambiance to it, especially when the crowd was into it.
And the crowd was definitely into it. There was a lot of excitement, a lot of energy. Sean, there's one thing that you need to know about this crowd.
What's that?
It's an AEW crowd. It was an AEW crowd.
Well, I mean, Meltzer was there, so I'm not surprised.
Do you want to know what was the most represented, basically entity amongst the merchandise I saw when I went there?
Is it Danhausen?
No, it's Bullet Club.
Oh, well, fair enough. I mean, they've only been around for 14 years.
Right, but you asked why the Bullet Club's still around? Because they're still around, because they're still popular.
That is definitely, well, they're still somewhat popular. I don't think they have the following that they once had.
Oh, no. Trust me, they did not. Anyways, let's get through this stuff. There were 10 matches that I saw. There were 2 pre-show matches, which you didn't review, and I didn't ask you to review them because fuck it.
Yeah, and I would not have. And this was your very first experience. Like, tell us about how long you had to wait, Sky, in order to even get this show to start.
Well, the show was supposed to start at 7 p.m. I got in line at 5:30. There's a lineup of a lot of people, fair number of people that was there. And then we got in pretty quickly. I went to the bathroom a couple times, and that will be a story throughout the night.
Yeah.
I ate my food before I went because I was not going to pay $20 for food at the arena.
Oh, hell no. Hell no.
And neither was the $16 beers. And then
$16 for a beer?
Yeah.
God, I thought the $12 or whatever it was in Bridgeport was bad. Holy hell.
Oh, trust me, it was bad. Anyways, it was a pretty nice ambiance, pretty nice arena. Again, the Bullet Club was the most represented entity, followed by New Japan, followed by AEW, followed by FTR.
They're still relevant, and they're still selling their shirts.
Right. Anyways, there were 2 pre-show matches. The first one was Alex Coughlin versus JR Kratos. It was a so-so match. Alex Coughlin is a young, nice athlete. JR Kratos, he's a fat man who's old from the NWA.
The only Kratos wrestler that I know wrestles for Colonial Impact Wrestling, links in the description. So I don't really pay too much attention to the one that NWA has, because Tyrus is their world's champion.
Right. The second pre-show match was David Finlay versus Bobby Fish.
that doesn't sound like it'd be a terrible matchup, or at least for Bobby Fish's half.
Except it was annoying as fuck that the fans behind me kept saying, Bobby, 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 Bobby.
I could see why that would be annoying. That sounds like AEW.
The AEW marks are annoying fucks. David Finlay won that match. And here's the thing. The pre-show was on YouTube that had no audio or video, or kept like scrambling, or it was snow, because Fight TV has no idea how the fuck to do anything. Apparently, this is the thing with New Japan. Anytime they do an American pay-per-view, Fight sucks so badly that the show was delayed for 45 minutes.
And I will say, if Fight TV is in fact responsible for the broadcasting and production of the version of this show that I saw, they made a lot of mistakes. But I also think part of that is just New Japan's production truck on top of that.
No, it's specifically Fight, because they're the ones that have the American broadcast. And New Japan just licensed out the show too, so it is what it is.
All right, well then Fight TV is to blame, and they did a whole heaping Halliburton of shit, because there was bad things.
But the one notable thing about this show, during the pre-show, and I told you guys, I was sitting in section 302 in the balcony area, and I'll show a couple pictures to Sean so that way he can get an idea to you people of where I was sitting. And there was, in fact, next to me, famous people. Which type of famous people? A C-grade celebrity, a B-grade celebrity, and an A-grade celebrity.
Tell us how. Well, if you're cool, then I'd like to show the folks the pictures.
Right. So here's the first one of the arena and where I'm sitting. During the show, I saw this giant guy with this afro, and I'm like, I know this guy from somewhere, but I have no idea where. And then a couple people started saying, "No way, Jose! No way, Jose!" And it was in fact No Way Jose.
Wow, what a find!
And then behind him was this older gentleman with an orange like sweater or something around his neck. And then I looked closer. I'm like, wait, that's Brian. That's Dave Meltzer.
And there is our esteemed co-host with the man himself. So we now have the in, even though we officially started this podcast by taking a gigantic dump on Dave Meltzer. But let's not break down semantics and ruin this wonderful moment you two have built together.
Right, but that's nothing compared to the man that was sitting in front of No Way Jose. One, in fact, Phil Brooks.
That's right. And another photo captured of him and Skyler. We now have at the ends with both sides of that equation. So now we really can say that we are buddy-buddy with the correct side of history, and that the Young Bucks and Omegas, our hatred towards them is now officially canon.
Yep. Josh, again, eat your heart out, because I know for a fact you don't have a picture with CM Punk.
Neither do I, but I didn't necessarily go out and want one. But still,
that's kind of the cool thing about wrestling shows, is you never know who's going to appear at these shows.
That's true. That's the exciting part of it, you know. And then I forget who it was that I met. Oh my God, I think it actually was. You know who it was? I actually think it was Tyrus. He showed up randomly, and I just nobody wanted to buy any autographs or something from him, so I just walked over and said hey, and he was kind of dismissive, and I'm like, all right, whatever, dude. But
here's the thing, is that Punk and Jose and Meltzer were all very nice and courteous about taking pictures, although you could tell throughout the night Punk was starting to get a little annoyed with it.
Oh, I'm sure.
But but the fans were respectful enough to him to be like, the fans were respectful enough to him to be like, you know what? He's here as a fan. He's not here as a wrestler. Let's just not bother him. We'll get our pictures and go. Anyways, speaking of going, let's start this show with an 8-man tag. It's a spot fest. Fuck it. I don't care.
Yeah, I skipped this. And I told you, you know what? I'm going to skip this. And you're like, all right, fine. So right. I don't think any of our fans are realistically, I don't think any of our fans are going to be upset that we skipped an 8-man tag that is just going to be a mess of spots.
Right. It was Kushida versus Voldar Jr. versus Kevin Knight versus the DKC versus Mascara Dorada, which is Grand Metalik, Josh Alexander, Adrian Quest, and Rocky Romero. Rocky Romero had the biggest amount of heat in this match because he was a bitch.
All right, sounds great.
The actual first match that we watched was Kenta versus Fred Rosser for the Strong Openweight Championship. The Strong titles are basically the American titles that they have. It's weird. But what do you think of the Kenta versus Fred Rosser match?
You know, it honestly wasn't that bad. I think, like most matches, you know, of New Japan and AEW style, it went way too long, as it always does. But what you didn't see or hear, Skyler, is that during Fred Rosser's entrance, the music that they played on Fight TV, the music was louder than everything. You couldn't hear the crowd. You couldn't hear the commentators. All you could hear was this track over everything. And it was like, it was actually like blowing the speakers in my television. That's how loud it was. So Fight TV was just straight up fucking up all night.
Right, it was a really bad thing. Kenta won the title after he got some help from Juice Robinson after a ref bump in the fourth match.
Yeah, and here's the thing. They did a couple ref bumps on the night. This ref bump wasn't even that bad. It's just this whole match I liked pieces of, like their initial grappling that they did. I think Rosser looks really good as kind of a Black Walter White. I think that is a good... it's a good look for him. I thought Kenta over-relied on DDTs a little bit, but I do like the fact that Rosser did the original Dave Finlay's cannon senton. It's not a senton, but it's like a cannonball, you know, into the gut. And I don't know anyone else who's doing that right now. So good on him.
I had to say, the only real note I had to say is that Kenta's GTS was shit.
Kenta's GTS was shit, but it was also... It just took too long, and they also took my pack of quarters finish, which I have to say, how dare you take the thing that I took from other people?
It wasn't quarters, it was just powder.
Well, no, they tried to sell it like it was quarters, and and Matt, I forget his name now, but the wrestler formerly known as Aiden English, I thought he held his own on the commentary booth with Kevin Kelly. He did all right. He wasn't unbearably painful to listen to.
No, it was the wrestler formerly known as Aiden English with Ian Riccaboni.
Was it Ian Riccaboni?
It was Ian Riccaboni.
Okay, I mean, well, fair enough. I mean, I thought they both did a good job, even still. Because it's, actually, that makes more sense, because Ian Riccaboni was a lot less animated than Kevin Kelly can sometimes get. I don't know whether you've noticed that with Kevin Kelly watching New Japan, is like sometimes he'll really get excited. And Riccaboni is a little more like monotone Lance Russell, like Gordon Solie deadpan. And that's not a bad thing. It's different. And I thought their commentary team was actually quite good compared to what it could have been. But the fans did not care for this nearly as much as they would have liked.
The most annoying part of this is that anytime a Bullet Club member was out there, they did the too sweet, too sweet, too sweet.
It's too old.
It was too old.
It's too old.
Fuck it, whatever. Kenta, Bullet Club, yay. Next match.
But before you get to the next match, just my final thought of that is, like, I expected this match to suck, given the people involved. But Rosser looks better than he ever did in WWE, and I'm proud of him. I really am, for sticking with it. I thought he was going to quit the business, and he didn't. Good on him.
Right. The next match is the West Coast Wrecking Crew, Joro Nelson and Royce Isaacs versus the Motor City Machine Guns for the Strong Openweight Tag Team Championships. Now, this match, I had issues with diarrhea. I missed most of this match except for the finish.
Well, don't worry, Skyler. They also had issues with diarrhea, which is why I skipped most of it. No, honestly, I don't dislike either of these teams, and I think there was actually a lot of good tag team wrestling in this. I just knew that I was trying to get all this watched before we started the podcast, so I kind of was like, okay, I'm going to skip, like, the middle of this. The only thing I really had to say was the referee is the honky-tonk man and Trevor Murdoch's long-lost John Travolta impersonating son. And the full lap suplex around the ring was impressive, but kind of stagey.
As was their unitard outfit thing.
Yeah, I don't really... Loincloth doesn't really work for that group. I think if they just wrestled in just trunks, they'd be just fine. But honestly, it wasn't a bad match. It was two experienced teams. I just kind of skipped most of the middle, and the Motor Machine, that's good. They're not, though. The Motor City Machine Guns picked up the win with their thing.
The thing with the Motor City Machine Guns is that they're a good tag team, but once you've seen one of their matches, you've seen kind of all their matches.
Yeah, I mean, they're kind of like the archetype of what the Young Bucks were before the Young Bucks were the Young Bucks, but there was a little more psychology involved.
Well, the difference is that Shelley and Sabin are better at selling, and that's the thing that kind of makes the Motor City Machine Guns work, is that they're the Young Bucks, except that they tried.
Yeah, and well, speaking of not being able to sell, we move on to the next match, unless you've got more to say about this tag excursion.
Eddie Kingston versus Jay White in a loser leaves New Japan Pro Wrestling match.
Jay White cannot sell pain to save his life.
Not only that, but this match started the trend of, I'm going to chop you. Now you chop me. Now I'll chop you back. Now you chop me again. Now I'll chop you another time. It was annoying as fuck watching these guys
forever
chop each other. Not only just chop each other, but chop each other and then ask the other person to chop them back. It got especially worse in the Zack Sabre Jr. match, which I'll get to in a second. But Eddie Kingston and Jay White, Eddie Kingston needs to stop doing the machine gun chopping thing, because that was annoying.
Oh, I had lost interest far before he even got to that. that was late stage of this match in a match that would not end.
No, it would not end. And Jay White, again, he has a great body. He's great athletically. He does the moves technically correctly. But he is boring as white plain toast.
He's got Finn Balor's physique and Johnny Gargano's level of selling. Which is, I'm going to make the exact same face over and over and over and over again and smile when I get hurt sometimes and then go back to the same face over and over and over again. I will give this credit to Jay White, though, because it wasn't all bad. His body language when he sells is good. His facials when he sells are terrible. And that's why I made the claim a couple weeks ago, that Jay White going to either of these other places is not going to be this landmark move that you think it is.
Right, and honestly, most likely he's going to go to AEW, because his style of wrestling fits them perfectly.
It does.
And I feel like Jay White's probably going to end up feuding with Eddie Kingston if he goes to AEW.
Yeah, and I will say, Sky, I have to admit you were right. You said I was going to be disappointed in Kingston by the end of it, and here's why I was disappointed in him. Because I've seen this match from Kingston before. Because this is the kind of match that Eddie Kingston likes to do. I hate to say it, but that's the case. And also, seeing Eddie makes me sad of how badly AEW dropped the ball on him right into Jericho's mouth.
I will say this, of the wrestlers that were on the show, besides the main eventers, Eddie Kingston was the most over person.
Yeah, he seemed so on fight for as bad as their audio was, but it seemed like the people still want to like Eddie Kingston. It's just, it's hard to fight bad booking from so long. But,
right.
But I do agree that this you hit me, I hit you style of match does not interest me at all. And this one just kept going. And it started good. It started really good with Jay White trying to get some space. You know, Kingston chopping him once and he leaves the ring again to regroup. All of that was fine. And we also didn't mention, Sky, how they had to make the commentary basically say, oh, yeah, by the way, Bullet Club's not allowed back. And if they do show up, you know, they're going to be fired. He's going to be immediately disqualified. And it just, how they announced that at like the last second and like all these last minute details reminded me right of SCCG.
Take that, Joshua.
And that is a valid criticism because it's because he's got the New Japan guys. He claimed when he started that his did have kind of a fusion of what New Japan was all about. So it would be canon for him to do something like this and be like, oh yeah, last second ad, just so y'all know, more stakes.
The best part was that they announced it over the PA system, and the guy who was saying it is like, well, it's been announced that the Bullet Club have been banned from ringside.
Yeah, and then they had to add it from Matt, what's his name, from Mr. English, that the whole stipulation of if they do show up, he'll be disqualified. So, like, clearly they added all of that way too late.
Right, in the post-production. And then Jay White gets a microphone, and it's like he's about to do his promo saying goodbye to New Japan, and then David Finlay clocks him from behind, then starts this rambling promo.
While Jay is continuing not to sell that he's hurt.
Well, Jay's selling that he's hurt, but selling it badly.
Yeah. And
but again,
while we're talking about this, before we get Dave Finlay in, I do feel for Eddie Kingston, who not only won, but then tried 5 times to tell Fight TV and to tell the production to cut his music so that Jay could have his moment. He goes, cut my music. He moves back. He's like, cut my music. He turns back around, cut my music. And then he gets up, and you can tell he's hot. He's trying to give Jay his moment, and Jay just can't. And it just doesn't happen. And you can tell Eddie's mad. And then they go into this, and Dave Finlay Jr. is not Dave Finlay Sr.
Well, he's not even fit.
Well, he's athletic. He's in shape, but he's not fit.
Right, and here's the thing with him is that he's a 4th-generation wrestler. He's saying, I'm a 4th-generation wrestler. I've always been looked at the outsider. Fuck you. Fuck you for thinking I'm bad. I'm better than America. I'm better than Japan. I am David Finlay or something, and I'm going to take over New Japan or something.
Yeah, and then it just kind of trailed off. Yeah, and here's the thing. Not only is he a 4th-generation wrestler, he is also a 4th-generation skinny white leader of the Bullet Club.
Here's the thing with the Bullet Club, okay? At least when Finn Balor and AJ Styles were members of the Bullet Club, they had an identity.
Yes.
We bemoan Finn Balor, but he did have an identity as Bullet Club leader, along with
as
AJ
Prince
Styles.
Devitt, he did. They sucked all that out of him.
The second Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks were in charge of the Bullet Club, that's when all the goofy shit started with New Japan. That's when they embraced the American indie wrestling that they do now.
Yeah, and boy, do they really embrace it, because there was some fill in it, baby. There was a lot of it. Is the next match the one I'm thinking it is?
It's a Filthy Rules fight.
Yeah.
Tom Lawler versus Homicide. They took off the ring ropes, and then they put a bunch of things underneath the ring, so that way these two could have a no DQ match.
Well, how did it go in the arena? What was the reception like from the fans?
People were shitting themselves. They were loving every bit of this. And again, what's the most over chant in wrestling right now?
We want fake doors. We want fake doors. We want fake doors.
No. It was tables. We want tables.
Well, they got a fake door instead.
Right. Homicide pulls out a door from underneath the ring, and I'm sending this picture to Sean to show you people what the fuck I'm talking about when I say, yes, they pulled an actual door from underneath the ring. Listen, trash cans, chairs, tables, okay, whatever. I could kind of buy that it's underneath a ring. Why the fuck would you have a door?
Well, like the fork made any more sense.
Oh, that was bullshit?
Yeah.
Listen, I love trash cans, but modern trash cans don't look like those silver ones. They only see those silver ones when in wrestling shows and hardcore matches. The ladder was whatever. The cookie sheet lids that were so fake.
Well, they're all just really like thin tins, so they don't really do anything. But the whole point is to make a loud noise and to crinkle like it's devastating. That's the whole point of that. It was just weird, because in between all of these spots, then they get into the ring and like go back to wrestling. And it was very jarring, like having wrestling interrupt like all of this mayhem, and then they just go back into the ring and like they do a headlock. And I'm like, well, you've already kind of like left that barn, so like how are you going back into it?
Like here's the thing, Homicide gets hit in the head by a trash can lid from Tom Lawler, gets back into the ring. Tom Lawler chases him. Homicide grabs Tom Lawler, hits a suplex, cover 1, 2, 3. Then later on in the match, there's a figure 4. Homicide's almost got Tom Lawler tapping out, and he decides, you know what, let's get the fork. Starts stabbing the fork in the foot.
Yeah, but he doesn't stab. The first time he stabs the fork in the top of the shoe, but then he starts stabbing the sole of the shoe, which there's got like 1.5 inch padding on the bottom, which is very obviously not going to get to the foot of Tom Lawler. And even Aiden Matt was like, he's probably not feeling that because there's a lot of padding on the bottom of that. And
where this match died for me was the brain buster on the door and kicking on it too.
Yeah, I mean that wasn't even the match.
No.
Was,
at that point, I said, "Fuck it, this is stupid."
Yeah. Oh, there was a lot of stupidity before that. By the way, Tom Lawler is just a smaller Josh Barnett, which is not necessarily a knock. It's just that's what I see in him. This is the first Tom Lawler I've really seen.
And a less charismatic Matt Riddle.
But here's the thing. You put the door and it breaks into the table, all that, and then Homicide brings a piece of that table in. Skyler, did you see what that door was made out of?
Well, here's the thing. I saw the splinters, quote unquote.
I have seen clipboards with sturdier material made out of them from composite wood and composite paper and particle board than that door was. I've made Science Fair trifold cardboard cutouts sturdier than that flimsy ass door.
I know.
It was like, wow. But the ultimate coup de grace, the gigantic chef kiss on this shit sandwich was Tom Lawler gets on top of this ladder and he takes forever, and he should have done the Nikki Ash like fist into the air, because then he goes for like some weird splash and completely misses Homicide well short, and Homicide sells like he just went into the electric chair.
Basically, it looked like Tom Lawler was going for a flying headbutt and missed it.
Yeah.
And again, I'm sending you the pictures. The people are literally holding the ladder so he can jump off of it safely.
Yeah. Oh, no. I didn't even see that. At least they didn't shoot that. Oh,
well,
no.
I have the pictures to prove it. I saw it, and I was like, oh, you have 2 assistants holding the ladder down.
And then in the most anticlimactic finish you could have possibly made for this match, after you completely missed the headbutt, he chokes Homicide out.
I know, and so stupid.
I wonder what a one-on-one match between these two in a regular set of rules would have been like, and I really would have preferred that over whatever the fuck this was.
Well, the next match will probably help you satiate that. It's Zack Sabre Jr. versus Clark Connors for the NJPW World TV Championship. I can't even talk right now. Fuck it.
I'm just so mad at you, Edge. I can't even speak.
And I was legitimately mad because this was the match where they abused the chop shit over and over. Hit me. Zack Sabre Jr. taking his chest and puffing it out just so Clark Connors can chop him.
I'm gonna be honest with you, Sky. I didn't watch it.
Here's the thing. If fucking Gunther was right there, would you be inviting him to chop you?
No. Not at all.
And you want to know the dumbest spot in this match?
Do tell.
Zack Sabre Jr. has Clark Connors in a Ring of Saturn, right? Submission.
Yep.
Clark Connors tries to roll Zack Sabre Jr. over to like pin his shoulders, and then they accidentally go into the referee, whose head is now stuck in Zack Sabre Jr.'s crotch.
Oh, jeez.
And they do this for 10, 15 seconds to the point where legitimately, and I saw this, CM Punk himself was laughing at it and said, that looks so stupid.
You heard it from the man himself. but I'm not really surprised. I mean, the only thing worse than Square Jaw McGraw is his Shane Douglas dynamic dude's haircut.
What is it with New Japan and people going with blonde hair?
Blonde hair equals white people? I don't know. I don't know. I'm not.
That is a conversation we are not ready to have.
I'm not Japanese. I don't know. I'm not a member of New Japan Pro Wrestling. I don't know what it's supposed to signify. I'm just a mark in Connecticut. So what do you want from me?
Well, I mean, considering Japanese people's fascination with white people.
Yeah, and that goes both ways, it seems. Hence why we're here talking about this said program.
Well, here's what we can do is that we can talk about Black Lady. Mercedes Moné versus Kairi for the IWGP Women's Championship.
So, Skyler, you made sure that this was the match that I saw. And to be fair, this was the match that you basically went to see and we basically told you to go see. And I must admit, this was probably the best thing on the program.
There was no competition except for the other match in the main event.
Which I also didn't watch because I figured it was going to be what I've seen from them all the time.
Right. Okada and Tanahashi didn't have a bad match. It's just that they had a good match that's their kind of match. But anyways, let's get away from that for a second. Kairi and Mercedes Moné have wrestled in WWE, but this didn't feel like a WWE match.
No, it didn't. I think it was paced kind of like, it had a WWE, at least the initial structure of it, but it definitely branched out into using New Japan's rules a little bit more. There was a little more grit, I thought, to it. It didn't feel nearly as stagey as Sasha's or Mercedes matches in WWE were a lot of the time. Because that ended up being the case in several instances. So I think that this is what I was hoping I'd see from Mercedes Moné, where she was able to expand her horizons a little bit. And I think that this match was a very good first step forward to that.
It was. I mean, Kairi also hold up her thing too. There's a lot of sympathy for Kairi because she became the women's champion and she only had one title defense. And it was a very short reign for her.
Yeah, and yeah, but that's not to say. I'm assuming that they're going to run this feud back for a little while, though.
Yeah, they did tease it. There is a couple things, though. You saw the Bailey to Belly, right?
I did see the Bailey to Belly, and then the chant for Bailey, and the fact that Mr. Matt, not English Aiden English, and Matt Aiden Matt English, also mentioned that might be a nod to her best friend from San Jose, but.
Who was in attendance.
Yes, yeah, as evidenced by another photo.
Which, she was sitting in the balcony directly under me. I didn't see this because obviously she was under me, but there was apparently reports that like when that spot happened and the referee went down, Bailey made like she was going to go run in, and then she stopped.
I bet. Oh, could you imagine how that place would have erupted? And how much trouble Bailey would have probably been in.
Well, that would never have happened unless like WWE was willing to approve such a thing, but we are not ready for that in 2023.
Well, Vince wouldn't, but Trips might. Trips might. Talk a little bit more about this match, good and bad.
Mercedes Moné definitely did more lucha stuff, which is evidenced by all the hurricanranas and rolls that she was doing. I'm fine with it. The one thing I'm kind of a little weirded out by is the ref bump leading to the table spot off the stage.
Well, this is going to be a theme tonight, folks, because what happened was the ref gets taken out, and then they just brawl forward and go out to the outside, and they spend, 3-4 minutes out there total?
Yep.
No second referee, and this was inconsistent all night. No second referee until it was convenient, I believe it was, or the original referee came to. And they just went out and they just did their thing, and there's no rules because, who cares about rules at this point? They're fighting on the outside. And that was really the only thing that took away from me. Well, that and Sasha pointing to the corner of the ring that she's going to do her lucha arm drags on.
Yeah, it's calling your spot, but the main thing for me and the problem with this match is that while I'm fine with Sasha winning, I'm fine with her carving out her legacy, it does feel like it's preordained and all that stuff. Like, and she's the woman of destiny that will lead wrestling and women. There was a part of the crowd that started chanting women's wrestling, and there was another chant at the main event when they were chanting "This is wrestling." I'm just like, this is really redundant, right?
Yeah, I mean that's what they. But that's wrestling fans for you. You know that's what they do. But I mean,
here's the thing. I would understand it when Vince McMahon was pushing like women down, or when Stephanie was pushing women down, and they weren't giving people wrestling. They were giving people filler arcs and shit like that. But WWE's under different management. They're trying different things. We'll talk about it later in the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view. But it feels like all the Vince hatred that exists, that really, the hatred of Vince McMahon is what started AEW. Don't let Nick Jackson, Matt Jackson, and Kenny Omega tell you otherwise.
No, that is an absolute fact. They just happened to find a Mark who wanted to do his own wrestling company to be able to hoodwink into having them be the ones in position of power of said entity.
Right, they just had to find someone who's been booking shows for 25 years, and Tony Khan was the perfect man to pick.
Right, that's right. We forgot that Dynamite's been running for over 30 years. It's just been on television for 3.
Right, it's been running since 1998.
That's right. Yeah, how quick we forget.
But anyways, the main thing with Battle in the Valley is that it was a fun show, although there are things, again, that annoy me about this show. Am I going to go to another New Japan show? Sure. But I'm going to go into it understanding they're going to attempt to appeal to the American indie audience and the AEW audience, and that is what it is. I'm not going to fight it. Sean, if I said any of the things that you had said at that show in Bridgeport, I would have been booed out of the building / probably hunted down by people.
Yeah, that's why I said most of them. But that's only because I was daring somebody. I was daring somebody to get in my face, and nobody did. So,
I mean, the other thing too is that like I didn't have the balls to go up to CM Punk and Dave Meltzer and all the other people until like halfway through the show.
Hey, I'm proud of you for doing that though, because not everybody would have. So you did good work, Skyler. You did great field reporting.
Yep. But I do have one more thing I need to say right now. And this is going to go specifically to New Japan Pro Wrestling. New Japan, your production sucks. You need to fix it, man.
Yeah.
You need to fix it really badly. Because right now, the way things are going, especially with the Fred Rosser music thing, that was terrible because you couldn't hear the rest of the show. But you want to know somebody who does do the music the right way, who does do the music not in an obnoxious way, but in an entertaining way, and makes you want to get up and dance and get up and move. You go to 2 men on the East Coast in Connecticut. Isn't that right, Sean?
That's right, Sky, because AB Production CT has got a plethora of songs that are available for you to listen to in all sorts of places. SoundCloud has an anthology all of its own. Over probably close to 200 songs now are on SoundCloud, all of which is just a catalog of years worth of work, of grinding, of practicing, of storytelling. It's all there. There's big anthologies that have a saga set to them called the Quarantapes. That's all there. But there's also all of the monetized work on Apple Music and Spotify and YouTube, which features the Wax Apocalypse and Retreat and Rest Stop and Mixed Bag and Recovering and Mixed Bag 2 and Just a Bit More and Bear Min and so much more right at your fingertips. It is high time for the music industry today to be shaken to its core, and the way it's going to be done is with 2 industry-busting artists slowly but surely taking the world by storm, because you can't make a living like you're Sid Vicious, where you can make $1 million in a night by dumping the bucket of water over the masses, and then they've seen it and they don't want to see it anymore. Or you could do what we're doing. You could do what Arn Anderson did. You could do what Bobby Eaton did. And each and every night you go out there and you prove it and you do something different. And you find something so different that one by one the people start to see the difference in your quality versus everybody else's quality, and that takes that quality to a level higher than anyone has seen before. But it requires you and it requires us to show you the entertainment revolution, and where it begins is with AB Productions CT.
Thank you very much, Sean. You would not mess up the audio levels that New Japan did.
I would surely hope not. I would surely hope not. But there is something that was... I can't believe we actually have a worse quality production to measure Kevin Dunn on today, but that is where we're at. And for the next hour and 10 minutes, we are going to talk about the Elimination Chamber of 2023, Triple H's first of the program. It is the Go Home Premium Live event, heading towards WrestleMania on April the 1st and the 2nd, and we had 5 matches on the show, and now we have to give a run-in of our own, Sky, because we've got somebody who is also pasty white and talks a lot and rambles sometimes, and sometimes it sounds convincing, and sometimes it sounds like Dave Finlay. You know the guy I'm talking about?
It's Josh again.
You know it, baby. Roll it.
It's time for Josh Again's Notes of the Week. It's time for his Notes of the Week. Oh, yeah.
It's been a while since I've been in this position, unable to personally cast my verbal effluvia onto the masses as my cohorts look on in horror as they wonder why the fuck did we bring this guy on the show again for the 80th time that session. But alas, my deranged and incoherent notes are always fun, as I love nothing more than to steal a gimmick someone else created. Call me Joshy... Oh, wait, just wait.
Don't tell me.
Call me Joshy Bliss, bitch. I refuse.
What?
I refuse. Sean, please, please refer to Skyler as the Bray Area Brawler for the remainder of the show. I'm not going to do that either. I'm not going to do that either.
Absolutely not.
He wasn't even on the show. Why would I do that to him?
Why would you?
And speaking of Skyler, I'm very jealous that he got to take a picture with CM Punk. He must have known you were going to flex on him today. I didn't know if this was already addressed on the show yet or if I'm bearing the lead, but if I'm bearing the lead, then fuck your format.
Nah, fuck your format, because I already got it in, bitch.
That's right. Although I do have to say, I do respect the fact that he also anticipated that we may have already flexed on him for taking the picture with Punk. It's funny to me that...
you knew I was going to do it.
He did. But it is funny to me that Skyler went to a shit show and met Punk, while I watched a good show at home and met no one. Perfectly balanced, as all things should be. Anyway, my thoughts on No Way Chamber Out Elimination 2023 are down below, and also Vegeta comes from the world vegetable. And I'm not going to talk about that any further than what we have just discussed.
Did he throw in No Way because of the fact that I saw No Way Jose at the
No, I think that was more of a reference to where this pay-per-view used to be No Way Out the way it should have been, and is now just Elimination Chamber, the name of the gimmick that we had 2 matches of. So before we get into these 5 things, let's talk a quick overview. Sky, your thoughts on EC23?
At least it wasn't ECW 2023.
True. And at least it wasn't EC3 20 times.
No, it wasn't.
No, it was not.
This is a weird show for me because in a lot of ways they showed restraint.
Yes.
And the best way I can say it is that they showed restraint. This was a show that they very much easily could have overloaded it with bullshit, and they didn't, except the main event, which we'll talk about later. But
yes,
there were a couple of things that during the show brought the show down. And the things that brought the show down were things that, honestly, it doesn't build excitement for WrestleMania like it should. And it's just disappointing more than anything else.
In some ways, yes. And in other ways, I think that they did all the things that they should have done to get much more hyped for WrestleMania, but I don't know whether the execution of said things left you feeling that way. You know, it really started degenerating kind of towards the last two matches of the show. But let's get into the first piece of this, which is the first Elimination Chamber, the number one contenders for the Raw Women's Championship. Asuka versus Liv Morgan versus Carmella versus Natalya versus Nikki Cross versus Raquel Gonzalez Rodriguez.
Quentin Tarantino says hello.
Yes. Now, what were your thoughts on this first Elimination Chamber, Skyler?
The women did better here than they did at the Rumble.
100%. I actually thought that, all in all, this actually was one of the better women's chambers that I can remember.
I think the thing is that because the standard was so low, that's why it's like so much better.
Well, Sky, I would like to refute that with evidence, but I cannot.
And this is the other thing too, is that like the other matches, something about this match was weird. This was a decent match, and noticeably, it didn't have a horsewoman in it.
No, and you know, the other thing that's also noticeable is, what a difference a hot crowd makes. Montreal was white hot, even for this.
Montreal was a great crowd, and it shows that a great crowd can even make an okay match a good match.
Yeah, and I love the fact that Asuka is no longer Banshee screaming. That helps her look a lot. It's amazing what a literal fresh coat of paint can do for an individual.
And not just around the eyes, but around the whole face.
Yeah, and I loved when they cut to her during any of the carnage, and she's just sitting there just smiling like, I love pain. Like, that cracked me up every time. But not like Liv Morgan, I love pain. No, and speaking of not being able to sell and using the exact same expression to sell every time, Liv Morgan cannot sell anything ever. Bad. It was... I know that they have backed her significantly over the past 6 months, but here I am at Elimination Chamber still wondering why the fuck they made her a women's champion. I don't get it. I was happy that Carmella... Well, go ahead, Sky.
Because she's a stripper.
Well, speaking of people who looked like they could definitely be, Carmella definitely has my shoot emotional vote. But I didn't see her winning this. But I do have to say, there were times in this chamber when she was the most entertaining person in it.
Yes, it was. And she was partially involved in the commentary line of the night. Because now they are fully openly acknowledging the fact that Corey Graves is getting some of that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt.
I mean, if I was Corey Graves, too, I would be talking about my woman, too. But the line of the night, Carmella's doing something in the ring. Corey Graves and Michael Cole are arguing, and Corey Graves is like, "Yeah, see how my girl's doing. Do you talk to your wife?" And Michael Cole's like, "She doesn't talk to me." And Corey Graves is like, "Good."
You know, I think that Corey has also gotten a lot better since Triple H took over. I think he's dialed things down just enough to where he is a lot less insufferable than he used to be.
It helps not having the 85-year-old man's voice in his head.
It also helps not having Byron Saxton anywhere around them. Those two cannot be in the same place at the same time.
Right. When Corey's on his own, he's fine. When Byron's on his own, he's fine. When they're together, it's bullshit.
Terrible. And then then came the female fusion of Abyss and Eugene, also known as Nikki Cross.
What the fuck was that?
That, my friend, is called an accurate comparison.
No, because if you are implying Abyss, that means intimidating.
Well, I'm mostly talking about the way that she, puts her hands next to her body, and also because she's insanely pale. Just like both of them were, but where she'll do that, and Abyss used to do this when he'd sell, he'd take a shot to the back and then he'd clench his hands like he's about to do a Kamehameha. And he'd do that and he'd kind of grip like he's just like tensing his forearms up. And Nikki does that a lot, I've noticed.
Nikki Cross, if anything, is just WWE's version of Rosemary from TNA.
Well, you know, except less. I still think Rosemary's better than Nikki Cross, but in any case, I did like the fact that they did shoot Carmella looking just confused and disgusted at Nikki Cross. But then I got a little sad because out came Natalya to a real good pop, and it made me think this is probably the last really good pop Natalya's ever going to get.
Yeah. And it's not even necessarily for her. It's just because she's a heart. It's not because she's good.
I know. And that's why it just made me sad. But I'm like, you know what? Let her have the moment. And I thought that Natalya really held this match together in a lot of ways. Starting it off with a collar and elbow tie-up, which we were 5 for 5 on appropriate starts to these matches tonight. Speaking of really good things, I'm not going to mention the collar and elbow tie-ups because we got 4 for 5 on them, and Brock and Bobby was going to collar and elbow, and Brock just charged him, which was equally as valid for what those two were doing.
By the way, New Japan was 7 for 10.
Which is also not bad. So not bad for February 18th. You know,
yep.
to go in on that. But and then Michael Cole, with maybe one of the worst lines of the night, said Shawn Michaels won the first Elimination Chamber in 2002, and the Chamber hasn't disappointed yet.
No, it wasn't a bad line. It just was inaccurate.
Yeah, that's a bold-faced lie. But I did like, not too long after that, did Natalya put Liv's face through the chamber and choked her with the actual chain link. And that was surprisingly vicious for that particular point. And I do have to say, for that timidity that they had with choking, I like the fact that they got that in.
Yeah, but of course it was going to be with Liv Morgan.
Well, yeah. Yeah, well,
come on.
But of course, Liv Morgan has the tolerance for physical pain and submissions as Deadpool does.
I guess.
Because it took 2 women giving their full finish, or at least one full finish, for her to finally pass out and be eliminated. So,
At least there wasn't a puddle of water afterwards.
Well, we don't know that. I think they scraped her off the mat before one could accumulate.
Yeah.
But
Nikki Cross got eliminated by Raquel Rodriguez. She was the first elimination. Liv Morgan was the second. Then Natalya got eliminated by Carmella when Natalya had... Who was it in the submission hole? I think it was Raquel. And then Carmella, super kick, cover, 1, 2, 3.
Yep. And there was another thing with Carmella. It's her running into one pod and then it being broken and then running and closing another pod. That was also really good. I also liked when Raquel Rodriguez is kind of in the corner. I hate Raquel Rodriguez smiling. It's kind of like with Ronda.
Right, because you should be Kevin Nash at the female women's division. You should just be a monster. Stop smiling. And Kevin Nash used to smile a lot too when he was WWE champion, and I know for a fact that's Vince.
Yeah, well, or whoever is telling her to do that, but she has the most generic Tron I've ever seen. It's literally just her with her arms folded. Everything she does, she's afraid of laying her shit in. That's the only way I can put it. Everything she does, the moves are solid, but they're timid.
There's no confidence in what she does.
No, and it's very obvious. It is very obvious that that's the case. And I felt that way the whole time that she was in. And I mean, it also is evidenced by the way that women actually run into the corner, because they do that kind of I don't want to call it's like a prance step almost, but they get kind of reserved when they get into the corner. And I've noticed that women's wrestling is full of that in certain cases. Liv does it a lot too. And I mentioned it with Dana Brooke at the Rumble, that kind of skip step when they're trying to not get into the corner and go in full momentum.
It definitely was a thing of there's a little bit of Raquel needing to get more confidence, which is going to come with time and training. Yeah. And obviously getting more matches under her belt. But it's also the way that WWE trains their people that they need to especially with their women's wrestlers, because they're training them to do basically the same thing.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, we mentioned that, the past couple of weeks, Sky, with the state of women's wrestling and how all these women are made to look alike and wrestle alike. And Raquel Rodriguez, to her credit, does wrestle differently. It's just that there's a lot of refinement into who Raquel Rodriguez is that needs to take place, and that has to come from her, and she needs to discover it. And I'm afraid that if she is stuck having to try and learn that on purely main roster television, that we're going to end up with a Tamina Snuka situation. Because Tamina at first had just as much potential as Raquel Rodriguez, just nobody wants to remember that. But in 2012, Tamina could work. Then she just stayed on the main roster and didn't have the time to learn because she was traveling all the time. So she had all those matches, and then we got what we got out of her.
Yeah, but here's the thing is that Raquel Gonzalez was signed in October 25th of 2016, and she's been training in NXT since basically 2022, back in April 2022. So she's had, at least 5-6 years at NXT? Now, granted, there was the COVID years, so she probably didn't get as much wrestling as she should have.
Well, and she wasn't put on main roster television. She wasn't put on NXT television for a while either, though. In that...
Not until 2020, but she was still working the Florida house show circuit, so she was getting matches in, and she was at the Performance Center training. It's one of those things where, yeah, she has potential. Yeah, she's early in her career, but she has to start showing some of that potential.
Well, and I think, there's pieces there. I could see their appeal in her, but she just needs work. She just needs work, but that's something that can be done. The octopus, tap out. And then Liv did. Well, actually, no, they called it because she was getting 2 submissions on. I did miss how Raquel got eliminated, though, because I had to step out.
Basically, Asuka and Carmella worked together and kicked her ass, which, again, it's kick, punch in the face, kick again. Both of them cover her. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, and that was fine. For what this match could have been and the disaster I expected it to be, I thought this chamber over-delivered in a lot of ways. Asuka submitting Mella is the right choice. Mella got good heat, and Asuka got a good pop for winning. And I was pleasantly surprised with the state of how this chamber went, because it could have been very, very not this.
They definitely had a lot to work through, but they got there. And now the thing, though, is that Asuka versus Bianca, does Asuka win?
I almost imagine she has to. I almost imagine because if she comes back in this new fresh coat of paint and then falls short to Bianca, who is by and large stagnant at this point with this belt, I know you love her, Sky, but you eat to your own admission, she's getting stale. I think Asuka has to beat Bianca so Bianca can add something to her gimmick and her, I hate to use the word character, but add layers to her to make the return match that they inevitably have later on more meaningful.
You mean heel turn, ?
Not necessarily. See, that's the thing. I think that's a misconception too, is that adding layers to your gimmick does not necessarily mean you suddenly turn into an asshole.
Not with that attitude.
It's exactly. You could. I think there's a case to be made that Bianca could definitely kind of get into that uncertainty, maybe get into a losing streak going, what's wrong with me, and then somebody, I'm not saying Shawn Michaels to Adam Cole, but somebody says, what the hell happened to you, Bianca? Where's the confidence that you had all this time? We had the faith in you that there's, if you are this person, go out and be this person, somebody can give her that fire back and then she can come back and get it. My point is
that, or if she loses the title, then cost Asuka the championship to somebody else in a miscommunication that results in a heel turn.
Yeah, you just don't know. It could be a heel turn. It could not be a heel turn. But Bianca needs something else. And I think Asuka just got something else. And while the fans are still behind her, you got to use that.
You got to use it before it runs out.
Yes, John Laurinaitis.
People power.
People power.
What did the people's notes say?
Oh God, I totally forgot about him. Hold on, let me pull him up. He's trapped in my tablet.
Forget about him because he doesn't do anything.
He's trapped in my tablet. Well, not in this form, he doesn't. Our opening contest was fine. Despite my incredibly sexist and truthful rants about obligatory multi-women gimmick matches in the past, this is definitely one of the better ones we've gotten. Don't get me wrong, I still hate half of the people in this match. I wish Chucky killed Liv Morgan for real, Nikki Cross has the exact same gimmick as Liv, and Natalia's gross-ass Charlotte Botox face makes her look like Jigsaw. Well, okay. You're not wrong about that. You're not wrong about that. The match was perfectly serviceable, and there weren't any horrific botches. A couple sloppy spots here and there, and you have Liv Morgan in the match, so what do you expect? The worst person in the match was Kevin Dunn, who went to a replay during the first elimination of the match because his enormous teeth are slicing upwards into his brain.
Wow.
That's very good. You know, that's actually what happens to beavers. That's why they have to chomp on wood, otherwise they'll be killed. Seriously, though, Raquel slamming Nikki through the door and pinning her is a good way to try and build back up the danger of this match stipulation, even though it didn't really work. Especially since this pussified version of the chamber feels more like a McDonald's playhouse than anything even remotely sinister. That's actually a good point. I did mention that the plastic plexiglass is not nearly as exciting as that, like, reinforced sugar glass they used at the start when they first made them. But, like, considering how many times you slam people into it, what else are they going to use? You know? One thing I did like was the subtle callback to Survivor Series 2002 when Carmella superkicked Natalya while Natty had in the sharpshooter locked in on Asuka, much like how Shawn superkicked Jericho and Jericho had Triple H in the walls. Except Shawn's superkick was a thing of beauty and Carmella's is somewhat acceptable. Kind of like her in-ring ability. I can't refute that either.
Yeah, Carmella still is not that good.
Carmella's more of a personality than a wrestler. That's a fact.
She's a sports entertainer.
You're right. Also, love how a super kick defeated someone using the sharpshooter in Montreal.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
I didn't think about that either, actually. That's a good catch. That's a good catch.
Wow.
Very nice.
Triple H is still fucking with Bret Hart all these years later.
All these years later. Asuka winning was the right choice, and props to Asuka for doing much better in-ring as of late. I know she dropped the goofy, crazy, screaming, banshee Japanese lady stereotype, and suddenly her stock goes up. I'm shocked, too. Decent way to kick off the show. Not amazing, but good. I look forward to her versus Bianca at WrestleMania, and I'm not doing your Dragon Ball Z pun horse shit, Josh, again. Not today.
What did he say?
I'm not... All of the names of Dragon Ball Z are named after fruit and grocery store things, people. Get out while you still can. Moving right along, speaking of things that got out while they still could, and I wish that we had gotten out of having to watch this match. Brock Lesnar versus Bobby Lashley 3.
The indictment of this match is the exact sentence you said. We got out, we should have got out when we could have. This is the type of match that you and me would have loved 2 years ago.
I know that Toronto is technically Bizarro World, but never in a million years would I have guessed that a multi-women's elimination chamber would not suck but over-deliver, and that a very promising Brock Lesnar versus Bobby Lashley match would suck. But that is exactly what we got here in Montreal.
They just don't have chemistry. Those guys, no matter what they do, no matter how much they try, no matter what they try, they just don't have any chemistry.
The first match was their best, no matter what it was ruined by, but it also doesn't help knowing that Bray Wyatt called out the winner, and none of our circle wanted to see Bray Wyatt involved with either of these two individuals, and that really kind of hurt my opinion of this match going in.
Yes, but also at this point, I was kind of like, at the end of this match, I'm like, you know what? Maybe I would like a Bray Wyatt interference.
Well, we never got it. Instead,
no, We just get Bobby Lashley and Brock Lesnar wrestling a Brock Lesnar match. You've seen one, you've seen all. Finisher kick out, finisher kick out, finisher kick out, special move, special move.
It's not even just limited to that, though. I mean, how many times, we saw this with Strowman and Goldberg. Remember that Fatal 4 that had Samoa Joe and Roman Reigns in it? That was basically this, Yeah,
but the difference with that one was that was a fun car crash that was waiting to happen. This was just like, okay, I've seen them do this before.
It was just, how many times have we seen this fight? Is the question. This is WWE's hashtag bad formatting Haas fight style. This is just what they do. I do like the Lashley piece, Bobby Lashley, with his little standing on the pedestal flexing thing. Too many people do spears in this company. Just to name 5, Lashley, Edge, Beth Phoenix, because she has recently, Charlotte, Roman Reigns. Sami Zayn did one recently. Am I missing anyone?
But Sami Zayn doesn't really do it that much.
No, he just did it. No, he just did it for Roman Reigns. But the other 4, at least, if you're not counting Beth, do it on the reg, and that is too many. Personally.
So who would you pick to keep the spear?
I would probably keep Roman and Edge. And
no Bobby?
He doesn't need it. He's got the hurt lock. He could whip out a Dominator if he wants to do something that would pin somebody. He doesn't need a spear. His isn't that exciting compared to everybody else's. Charlotte's looks like ass all the time.
Bobby's looks like he starts in slow motion and then goes fast, but he starts in slow motion.
Yeah, it's just, to me, Roman just because they've really put it in for so long, and Edge because he's the one who really kind of started doing it as a smaller guy, and he's the only one who really made it work.
Right, and again, it's legacy with Edge. He's allowed to
right. That's his thing.
Bobby Lashley could easily switch to a choke slam or a power bomb or any other type of big man boss bout finisher.
Yeah, but really, this was a Vinnie Mac high spot Haas fight.
That ended in a DQ, a Joshua special.
That ended in the babyface Brock Lesnar turning heel by intentionally getting himself disqualified, and then F5ing Chad Patton through the announce table, which he 100% did not have to do.
Yeah.
And then it didn't even get the heat. Everyone's like, okay, Brock wrecked shit. And then Brock looked happy, and Bobby was like, okay. And then there was no Bray Wyatt. They just stopped.
Because Toronto wasn't going to boo Brock Lesnar. They kept telling him one more time.
Well,
one more time.
Of course Toronto wasn't going to boo Brock Lesnar. We were in Montreal, for Christ's sakes. And it is Memorial Day weekend after all.
He's wrong. I'm sorry, Montreal.
No, it's all. Yeah,
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Fuck the Habs and the Maple Leafs. Who cares? Anyway.
You're like a true Boston Bruins fan.
That's right.
Well, speaking of people who don't care about that shit, let's listen to Joshua's notes.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Oh, crap. Forgot about him again. All right, here we go. This is what you get for making Dragon Ball Z puns. You get forgotten. All right. I have a confession. I'm madly in love with Skyler. As much as I love Brock, I don't understand what he just did. As much as I love Brock, I'm getting kind of sick of seeing Brock. It's the same formula in every match, and over the past year or so, it's gotten very stale for me personally. You're not wrong. Again, I love the guy, but I don't see the point in keeping him around if this is all we're going to get. This match is basically The Rock versus Cena at Mania 29, except Rock Cena actually did moves besides their finishers. I love the first belly-to-belly to Brock gave Bobby, but then spear, F5 spear, hurt lock, F5 spear, harpoon, jellyfish, bikini bottom. This was the equivalent of just looking up what people's finishers are in the WWE 2K creative moveset and just hitting replay over and over again. Accurate. It was so dull, and then the low blow finish was just lame as fuck. Brock hitting more F5s on everyone post-match did nothing for me. This whole thing was a dud. And the idea either of those guys facing Bray Wyatt at Mania makes me want to vomit. I'm not doing your stupid bullshit with your Dragon Ball garbage.
Read the damn line.
No. I refuse.
Read it.
No.
Read it.
No.
Then tell it to me and I'll read it.
You know what? Why, Skyler, why are you so serious? Why so serious? Maybe you should just relax a little bit. Maybe you should sit back and watch a movie.
That's the wrong Joker.
Maybe, well, not according to the weird Seth Rollins, Becky Lynch part, because he came down as Joaquin Phoenix and then spoke like Heath Ledger. So you tell me which one he was trying to be, because I don't think he knew. But this, to be fair,
we knew that Mark Hamill was the best one.
Well, all of you out there should go watch this Hollywood promo for Mania 39, because Becky and Seth in this like Batman and the Joker thing, it did make me laugh. Like that, it was good. It was, for what both of them are, I appreciated it.
Yeah, they're doing like 4 or 5 different Hollywood parody movie things to hype up WrestleMania being in Hollywood. I know one of them is a Bloodline Godfather thing. Yeah,
and I didn't get the chance to see that. I don't think I saw that one yet. This is the first one.
No, it hasn't premiered yet.
Oh, right. They're still airing them over the course of the next like 6 weeks, right? That's the whole point.
Yeah, we got 6 weeks to go to Mania. They're gonna put all of them at the same time? No.
Yeah, no.
But this was funny seeing Joker, Seth Rollins. I mean, that's his gimmick already. So
yeah, they picked the right people for that promo too. I thought they did I thought that was well done.
The only thing is that this implicates that Becky Lynch is Uma Thurman.
Well, it implies that Becky Lynch is Christian Bale, I think.
No, wait, Lady Gaga. That's the person that's going to be Harley Quinn in the next Joker movie with Joaquin Phoenix.
Yeah, which we'll see how that goes. But
Mario Brothers movie is better than the Sonic movie. Changed my mind.
It's not out yet. I can't change your mind until I see it. But speaking of things that I had to sit and watch, it is now time for the mixed tag match between Finn Balor and Rhea Ripley versus Edge and Beth Phoenix. What did you think?
I hate the fact that the mixed match challenge now means that all the husbands and wives of wrestling want to wrestle with each other.
I know. We've been making this complaint with Edge and Beth since they started this feud with the Judgment Day, and it hasn't stopped.
They only keep doubling down on it. Listen, I love Edge. I love Beth Phoenix. During the majority of their careers, they were never associated with each other. I don't appreciate the fact that Beth is doing Edge's stuff, and I don't appreciate the fact that we have to sacrifice Rhea Ripley's push for this. Now, the reason why Edge and Beth Phoenix got the result here is because that if they had lost, then this would be like me in Los Angeles with NWL.
Yeah, I think that at this point they had to do it, but I also think that this was to take Balor got. The only reason they did this was that so Balor could get the pin so that Rhea Ripley can still keep doing what she's doing. I don't think she herself is hurt at all here with how this went down.
I mean, Finn Balor's dead.
Well, Finn Balor's been dead to me. So this is just another, just chalk it up on the long list of I told you so's, at least in my situation. But I think they're going to go with Edge and Balor at Mania, which I'm not even that interested in. And it's a shame. If Edge is really trying to retire come August, having a one-on-one match with Balor is your last Mania match, man?
Can at least beat Damian Priest.
That's what I'd like. Try to build the guy who's got the best chance to be a star. But, maybe they see things differently than I do, and maybe this is something Edge wants to do. Maybe he wanted to work with Balor. There's a very good possibility that that's the case.
Yeah.
The Grit Couple is still a stupid name.
What were you going to call them, though?
What, Edge and Beth? Edge and Beth.
No, they need to have a nickname.
How about Edge and Beth Phoenix? Is it too hard to just call them by their names?
If we call them by their names, it'd be Adam Copeland and Beth Phoenix.
Well, I mean, I still would prefer not to use the Grit Couple. It's still stupid. Not saying that there's a better choice out there. I'm saying there isn't. Just Beth Phoenix and Edge would have sufficed fine. But you know, I know they love that little cutesy crap, so I don't care. I love how much heat Dominic is getting, though.
Dominic's a little shitbag, and he's getting the heat.
He's, you know, I was kind of, you and I were both a little worried about him with his development and wondering where he was going. I think now that he's been with Rhea Ripley, he's developing just fine.
Well, I mean, you put me next to Rhea Ripley, and I'm going to develop just fine on my own.
Yeah, you put me next to Rhea Ripley, something's going to develop on me, but let's not get into that.
Oh, please, you want to get into that.
Yeah, you damn right. You damn right I do. But thirst aside, it was a good wrestling match. It was just slow and it's just milked. There was nothing wrong with the match. I didn't think. It just took a while.
And that's not even the worst part, is that this wasn't really that long of a match, considering what else was on the card.
Yeah. Well, yeah, considering what else was on the card. I mean, it still took a while. It's just that I don't know what else to say. I mean, all of this was good. I mean, the steel step spot, the Eye of the Hurricane, Dominic leaving and coming back and being a distraction. Rhea got good heat. It was well structured. The duo educators was nice. The little shout out to FTR with the Shatter Machine was nice. The only thing I didn't like was the female power bombs on the dudes.
That, and also, again, the whole thing of like, okay, we're sacrificing the Judgment Day for Edge and Beth Phoenix. Edge is probably going to end up wrestling Finn Balor. We got the Beth Phoenix, Rhea Ripley stuff out of the way, so hopefully we don't have to repeat that stuff.
Yeah, it just feels like this is almost like we're really trying to end this feud, but we do want to end it at Mania, but we're doing everything in our power to extend it to Mania, and we are trying.
Yeah, and again, it's that thing of like, we don't need to see these guys wrestle anymore. There's nothing new or interesting that's going to happen.
And really, I think this whole feud ran its course before Edge came back. Like, if you had not done any of this, like if Edge had come back and not ever been associated with the Judgment Day again, I would have been fine with that. I think everybody would have been fine with that. There was really no reason to run this back the way you've run it back.
But the other thing, too, though, I'm going to be honest, is that when you look at it, again, it's the whole thing of I wonder how much their plans changed after AJ Styles got injured. Because I feel like that was the feud that they were going to go with for at least a little bit.
It is entirely possible. It is entirely possible that that's the case. And I don't know whether AJ, I mean, there's chances are that he's not going to be back for Mania time. That's almost confirmed, right?
Pretty much.
So, but that could mean that AJ Styles might be Edge's match at SummerSlam. You know, maybe we'll just have to wait on that just a little bit longer. But, I mean, the bottom line, again, there was nothing bad about this match. It was just long.
And we've seen Edge and Beth Phoenix tag together in the mixed tag again.
It was fine. Rhea Ripley looked good. Finn Balor exists. And Dominic is getting great heat, so I love to see him develop.
Well, speaking of existing, what does Joshua have to say?
Well, speaking of people I forgot for the third time, Edge and Beth Phoenix versus Rhea Ripley and Finn Balor. As the only person associated with the misinformation perpetrated by this channel who is invested in this feud, I will say this. Stop calling them the Grit Couple. It is so goddamn lame. I know that Sean and Skyler have a laundry list of issues with this feud, but because they are wrong, although we kind of just talked about it, but that is honestly my biggest issue because that name is horrendous. Besides that, I thought the match was great. I mean, Edge and Balor have wrestled so many times now, kind of our complaint, that they're practically twins. That's not true at all.
No, they are not.
They are not even close to twins. But I love the...
Yeah, one's a legendary wrestler with a glorious history that's going to be celebrated. The other one is Prince Devet.
Yeah, but I love the in-ring between Beth and Rhea. And the crowd shitting all over Dominic was amazing. This heel turn has single-handedly salvaged Dom's entire career. However, the mistimed brass knucks pin breakup botch really took the oomph out of the match. I totally forgot about that.
Yeah, Beth Phoenix did not get back in time, so Edge had to kick out.
Yeah, I do remember that, and it was oh so close, and you knew that it was a mess. You knew it was messed up, but like honestly, at that point, it wasn't even that big of a problem. You know,
the crowd didn't care.
Crowd didn't care. I mean, it did kind of ruin the flow of the match, though. He is right when he says you could tell it really ruined the flow of the match, especially when Rhea and Beth were brawling awkwardly on the floor. But they did get the crowd back into it by the finish, and Edge and Beth using the Shatter Machine was a nice touch. Good match despite the botch that could have easily killed the whole thing, although I would have had Rhea pin Beth, but at least it was Finn who ate the pin. Oh well. All right. Match 4. I'm not saying the thing from the Dragons with the balls from the Z because we have an Elimination Chamber match to talk about. We don't got the time to talk about Dragon Ball Z's bad puns. We have...
Right, I'm on a clock and I got 36 minutes. So
that's right. And we're doing a good job. We only got 2 matches left in closing thoughts. I think we're doing all right. Match 4, Elimination Chamber for the United States Championship. Austin Theory versus Seth Rollins versus Shitty versus Bronson Reed versus Johnny Gargano versus Damian Priest. Shitty is Montez Ford, for those of you this might be their first podcast. What were your thoughts about this chamber?
There were impressive things that happened in this chamber. There were good things that happened in this chamber. But again, having 2 of these on the same night is... You're recycling spots.
Yes. And these guys did a lot. They did a lot. I loved Damian Priest's entrance, though. Damian Priest looked like a badass. I have to say that Montez Ford looks a lot better by himself than he does with Angelo Dawkins. You know, I'm not his biggest fan of Montez Ford, but there were things that he did in this that I were am alright with.
Yes, he was very exciting. There was a lot of energy that he brought, a lot of good things that he did in this match. It shows why they want to push him as like a singles at some point.
Yes, at some point. I don't think he's there yet, but he's got kind of a John Morrison-ish quality to him, at least like early John Morrison. You know, when he was Johnny Nitro, and he was just, you know, give him some time. I think he could develop into something that, you know, serviceable for them. Was this a 3rd version of Rebel Heart, or am I just making that up?
No, it's well, okay.
Because it sounded like a worse version of the version that I heard at Royal Rumble.
No, it's the same version.
Okay, well then I will concede that yes, this is a crappy version of that song, and that the song just sucks unless it's done by somebody better than the 2 people that I've heard it from. Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry. Not sorry. And is Seth a babyface at this point?
He is.
Okay, because they didn't really ever explain that. They just kind of were just like, here's Seth Waluigi. And everyone's like, so I guess it all worked out.
Yeah, and I mean, come on. Like, people like chanting along with Seth Rollins' theme. They like the guy. I think the heel turn happened. No, the face turn. Who knows? Who cares?
Who knows? With WWE, who knows? Here's my problem. This match very much turned into a lot of waiting and a lot of standing around and a lot of just... There was a lot more acting breaks in this than there were in the women's chamber.
Is there any particular person that you want to blame?
Gargano was... they all had a part of it. Gargano had a big part of it. Theory had a big part of it. Seth had a big part of it. I think all 3 of them really were the ones that did it. Because, I mean, Ford wasn't really doing that much. Bronson Reed was just kicking the shit out of everybody. And Damian Priest was there doing half-assed unprettiers and beautiful thunderclaps.
Yeah, this match did nothing to make Damian Priest look good.
Not really, no.
I mean,
really...
it tried to make Bronson Reed look like a monster, which he does, but also I can't stop looking at him and thinking, okay, he's Otis with black hair.
To me, he's Samoa Joe with an extra, like, 60 pounds in his thighs.
Oh, a fatter Samoa
Yeah,
Joe.
Basically. I mean, he's got the same snarl. Like,
does such a thing even exist?
Yeah, his name's Bronson Reed. But,
I guess.
But anyway, the thing was that Seth Rollins sold a really good shoulder tackle from Damian Priest, though, when he got in, that I do really appreciate. The thing is, with this whole thing is, when this started turning a lot more acting and spots, rather than storytelling, that was what I started feeling pretty much until people started getting eliminated, is that everything up until pinfall started taking place, I could have done without about half of that.
Especially that spot that Johnny Gargano did, as impressive as it was, off the pod, doing a Hurricane Rana to Seth Rollins. That was so dangerous.
That was dangerous, but I will say that was impressive. Now, I would have rather have taken that than the German suplex into the chamber where Damian Priest didn't even leave his feet and he just kind of like gently slammed onto the chain link.
Yeah, but that's the reason why Johnny Gargano is so cheered, is that he does these moves that are so impressive that a guy his size should not be able to do, or if he does do it, it's impressive.
Yeah, like, he should not have been the guy to poison Rana Bronson Reed. Which was ridiculous, by the way. That was one of the few spots that actually made me pop. A, because I thought the poison Rana was banned in WWE.
Apparently it's not.
Apparently it's not. And B, because I didn't think of all the people they would have do a poison Rana, that Bronson Reed from Johnny Gargano was going to be the combo that did it with the whole setup and all that.
If it was going to be anybody on Bronson Reed, you'd think it would have been like Seth Rollins or something.
Yeah, or Montez Ford with those gigantically long legs. Not Johnny.
Do you trust Montez Ford to do a poison Rana?
I mean, no more or less than I do Johnny, but I'm thinking about perception here. But in any case, and then Ford did the climb up the cell. This is where I said this is why he reminds me of John Morrison a little bit. It was a spot fest, but it was kind of a fun spot fest. But then came the best part of the entire night.
Which is?
Michael Cole said Uragi. He stole your botch, Skyler.
He stole my botch.
He stole your botch. Michael Cole said Uragi. And then we get a bajillion crotch chops from Montez Ford, which we could have really done without.
Well, that's how you get your push, is that you appeal to DX.
Yeah, well, apparently, yeah, guess who's booking? But they started getting the people out in the right order. I mean, I would have preferred to not have had the super kick party from everybody on the Bronson Reed, but fine. Reed goes, and then Gargano goes, and Ford goes, then Priest goes, I believe it is, and then it's down to...
No, it's Priest and then Ford.
Priest and Ford, I'm right.
Because they did an extra cell with Ford after he got stopped onto the steel steps of the Elimination Chamber where they got the referees and stuff in.
Right.
And the door was open for an extra amount of time.
But we did see the Liger Bomb first, which I thought was dope, too. Just wanted to mention that. But yeah, and I do have to give credit to Ford here. This was really good selling because they got me when they did this.
They did too, but the reason why they did this was so they could have the door open extra for just a little bit longer than normal for an elimination. So they could have one Mr. Logan Paul show up and screw over Seth Rollins.
Which is fair. I mean, you knew that this was kind of where they were planning to set it up. The only thing I didn't like about this was that Logan Paul tried to cut a promo at the end, and Triple H sensed that they were spending too much time on Logan Paul and not on the winner of the match, which was Austin Theory. So Triple H cut Logan Paul's promo off in half just so they could make sure that Austin Theory got shown as the winner. And I respect Triple H for making that distinction and not just making it all about Logan Paul.
Right, because, I mean, if you're going to have Austin Theory be, like, one of your future guys, once he matures up a little bit and gets better at wrestling, you got to give him his moments to shine.
Yeah, you can't have the winner of this chamber be the afterthought in the match. Ask The Miz. Hey, folks, without getting into any details, we had something a little unprofessional here happen at the Court-Martail podcast, and unfortunately, Skyler had to leave. So he was not able to stay for the main event. He gave the show a 6. And I'm just going to briefly run through what I thought of Roman Reigns versus Sami Zayn. And then we're going to pack this up and we're going to get out of here. And the next time we do a pay-per-view review, I don't know what it's going to look like. And I don't know who's going to be on it. And I don't know who's going to be doing what. So you're just going to have to stay tuned for what's going to happen there. Of course, we've got ACPW and NWL. Me and Skyler are going to rip that apart next week. Going to be great. So stay tuned for that wonderful booking. Of course, we didn't even talk about Jerry Jarrett and his passing because we were doing so much to stay so tight on time. And even though we did everything we could, still wasn't enough. Partially my fault. Don't want to make it sound like blame is only on one side of this here. Absolutely 100% partially my fault. But at this point, now that we're not rushing, now that we're not speeding up in order to accommodate a time constraint that wasn't even accurate to begin with, Jerry Jarrett passing away, we are going to discuss on my 30th birthday weekend in the first week of March, because similar to Antonio Inoki, what happened was Jerry Jarrett passed away, but he's so important and so influential, I don't feel like it would be appropriate to just pass him and sweep him under the rug. So give us some time on Jerry Jarrett. We will be doing that episode, but it is going to be airing the first week of March instead. So stay tuned for that. Now, Roman Reigns versus Sami Zayn. This went forever, and a lot of it was acting. This was more acting than wrestling, but good God, was the crowd white hot for this. And it was a very special moment on that. They figured out that the champ came out first. I do like the fact that Roman Reigns, once again, is wearing the WWE title instead of the Universal title, which means that maybe they're holding the WWE title in more regard if they do decide to split these titles up, which I hope they don't. This female announcer, this female Greg Hamwich, is literally clenching her fist so hard, desperate to grow a pair to get her voice deep enough to make this sound like the severity of what's going down in this match and to add to the gravitas, and it's just not working. But man, this match was, in my opinion, where they went too far in the acting to wrestling ratio. A lot of times they did a lot of balance, and a lot of times they did a lot of, they would do the wrestling, and then there'd be, the acting scenes, but it wouldn't ever too overtly break like the context of what the match was. This time they went too far. They milked for easily 10 minutes. This crowd chanting for Sami and saying F you Roman. He got such good heat. I loved Roman Reigns' "you're dead to me" stare at Roman Reigns, or at Sami Zayn right as it was about to start. The milking worked so well with this crowd. The collar and elbow tie-up was huge. And this was kind of the situation where they're so over, it didn't matter how good or bad things looked. It was going to be fine regardless to these fans. A headlock got a pop. That's how intense it was. A headlock got a pop. So that's how it went, and they could do no wrong. The match just took a really long time to get going, but Sami was over, but it was more acting than wrestling. And I do have 2 words for you: red undies. And that is not going to stop. And I swear to you, he's going to wear blue undies on the day that he loses that belt. You watch. I did like Paul Heyman's eyes on the sunset bomb that Sami Zayn got on the Roman Reigns, where he looked very concerned. It just, this whole thing took easily like 45 minutes from the beginning of the entrances to the title reigns. And I would say in that 45 minutes, you got maybe 7 to 10 of wrestling. Maybe. Because the rest of it was long and theatrical. It was good. I mean, it was all good stuff, but it was just long and theatrical. And any sort of semblance to a realistic competition and a realistic fight was lost. And that's not even counting the ref bumps. It's not even counting the ref bumps. Roman Reigns doing the barricade spot from Sami Zayn, just sidestepping him. Again, there was a lot of good things that I am clearly glossing over. But they did, but a lot of this was kind of standing around and waiting. And not a whole ton of action. I mean, the action itself, everything of the action and the facial expressions, it's all solid. It's all good. My complaint is formatting. Because the formatting, it just ruins what this could have been. Because, again, they did this really long, drawn-out angle where Paul Heyman actually did a Catholic genuflect, which is somewhat ironic. The ref gets knocked out. Sami got some juice in the titty, and I don't know where that came from. And here's the thing. Jimmy runs into the ring and hits the super kick, hits a second super kick, hits the third super kick, and as he hits the third super kick, the referee is very clearly running down the ring because no sooner had Jimmy gotten out of the ring that the second referee came into the ring. So, did the second referee not see Jimmy kick Sami Zayn while he was running down to the ring? Or was he so laser focused that he had his head down like he was a rousting bull and he was just looking straight down at the ramp so he didn't fall through like Titus O'Neil? I don't know. But that was just the first part of that, because then they do all of that and Sami gets Jimmy out of there, but Roman Reigns turns around and hits him with a spear. And that's the thing. And the thing I have with that is that if you're trying to get Roman Reigns, I understand wanting to have a big match with Sami, but wouldn't you want to protect the spear for Cody? I feel like you could have gone through this whole match without doing this particular spear for the false finish. And that, to me, wasn't necessary. You could have just done the one. You could have just done the one spear at the end and had it be fun. But then we get ref bump number 2. And this one lasts for forever because now Jay shows up. And then they do the hashback, tag, flag, rag, dag, mag, lag of Jey Uso, being hesitant to hit Sami with the chair. So Roman Reigns gives it to Jay, and then Jay looks all quizzically, and then it doesn't really and then Sami spears Jay by mistake, which has Jay roll out, but again turns around, and then boom, second spear, 1, 2, 3. You didn't need to do the spear for the second shot. I feel like if you had Roman hit Sami with something else, Sami shouldn't have kicked out of the spear. That should have been saved for just Cody. I know that everybody does it, but in the context of what you're having everybody do and what the finish and afters of this match were, did Sami really need to kick out of that spear? I don't think so. I really don't. That was my one complaint about the wrestling side of it. But it took these referees, these two referees clearly have stage 12 concussions because they were out for the better part of 8 to 10 minutes, both of them. And that's my whole thing. It's just, it was a spectacular match, but it was buried under 15 minutes of theater with no regards to logic. And this was and this is where you finally crossed that plane of acting to wrestling ratio to where I will no longer like these matches if this is what they're going to be like. And thankfully we've only got one more of these, but that's just my thing. But after the fact, then they go to beat up on Sami, and Kevin Owens comes in, and I love how everybody did this. You know, Kevin Owens starts just stunning everybody. Paul Heyman starts to hit Owens. Owens turns around and no-sells it, hits Paul with a great stunner, with an even funnier stunner sell from Paul Heyman, which was great. And then, you know, they do this stare down, and Owens, you know, doesn't really trust Sami. Sami doesn't really trust Owens, but that's just how this is all built. And it just kind of ended in this really weird, bittersweet fashion that I don't really know how to describe. It was fine, but it was incredibly long, unnecessarily long, and it really pushed the parameters how much I'm willing to accept acting in the middle of all this acting in the middle of the wrestling. I know that WWE doesn't really care about the wrestling nearly as much as they do about the storytelling, but at some point, you gotta make sure you don't sacrifice too much of the wrestling for so much storytelling that it just grinds everything to a screeching halt for 40 goddamn minutes. This is what Josh Again had to say. Roman Reigns versus Sami Zayn, Undisputed Universal Heavyweight Championship. This was what I turned this show on to see. This is what Montreal paid to see, and it was awesome. I loved every milked second of the match, and the crowd reaction was to die for. Everything in this was God tier, from Roman doing a mocking kiss at Sami while Sami was screaming at him, Roman making the I'm done with your shit face once the bell rang, Paul Heyman frantically doing the Catholic cross symbol on his chest when Roman kicked out of one of Sami's moves. It was great. Was it milked like crazy? Yes. It's WWE. That's what they do. Did I enjoy the hell out of it? Yes. And the fact that Jay didn't turn on anyone was something I didn't see coming. I liked the miscommunication in X's and O Spear, as I know I have no idea where they're going with that. And KO coming into Clean House was great too. Not to mention, not the greatest main event ever, and likely won't be in the contention for match of the year, but a damn good main event with an insane crowd. And the crowd really made it. That's the fact. Montreal was white hot the whole time, and it showed. And it showed. And so now we get into ratings. And as I mentioned, Skyler gave a 6. Now, for Josh, well, I guess I'll read Josh Again's rating, and then we'll close things up here. Closing thoughts. This was a very good show. In my opinion, better than the Rumble. The Rumble was 1/3 amazing, 1/3 dog shit, and 1/3 eh. This show had only one dud, and everything else was at least good. Not quite as good as SummerSlam or Clash at the Castle, but still a solid outing. I give Elimination Chamber a 7.5 out of 10, and I'm very excited for this year's WrestleMania. Let's look at the card. Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes, Logan Paul versus Seth Rollins, Austin Theory versus John Cena, theoretically. Sami Zayn and Owens versus the Usos, theoretically. Charlotte versus Rhea Ripley. Bianca Belair versus Asuka. And I also heard word that there's a possibility we might get Bayley and Lita in the mix, which would be definitely interesting. But folks, that's what Josh Again has to say. It's infinitely better than last year's WrestleMania card. But like always, potential and reality are two different things. But I have much more optimism and faith for WWE to put on a good Mania this year. These are my notes. Hope they didn't result in too much cancer. Back to you guys. Oh no, sir. This was not Josh Again, you in fact were not cancerous. There were other things that damaged and hurt this podcast from several different angles. From me being late, to Skyler leaving before the podcast was done, to you being your usual self. It's just safe to say that we all suck. So that's how that's going to go. And my final rating is also 7.5 out of 10. All in all, I thought it was good. I thought it was a good show. It was, for what it was a solid B pay-per-view. It was a far too much Hollywood finish at the end, but look at where they're having WrestleMania this year and tell me that I'm not incorrect. Because it's, they're going to milk, and that's their whole thing. You know, they should open up a dairy. Maybe that's what Vince, well, actually, isn't that what Vince did? Wasn't he on a dairy when he was first growing up? You know what? It doesn't matter. But 7.5, because the women's match over-delivered. Brock and Bobby did not. That was where 2 out of those 3 points went. The Edge and Rhea and Judgment Day match was fine. The men's match was overly theatrical, and the main event was overly theatrical, but good enough for what they were doing. So, you know what? I'll split the diff. I'll say it was like 7. I'll say it was a 7 instead of a 7.5. So, there you have it, folks. Elimination Chamber 2023 in the books. Battle of the of whatever it was called, Battle in the Valley. We covered it, so now you know what's going on there. And next time, we're going to be able to sit down and relax and take our time and talk about everything that needs to be talked through. And we're going to have ourselves a nice, peaceful, relaxing podcast with no pressure. It's going to be no pressure whatsoever, because instead, you're going to get our version. You're going to get ACPW and you're going to get NWL, and it's going to be fantastic. But the only way you're going to see it is to like, is to share, is to subscribe, is to swatch that bell button and switch it to all, so that every time that we post, you know. But until then, we gotta go to our first commercial break. Thank you very much for watching, and we will see you after this short message.